Hey, and welcome to a special episode of Colorisma. I'm Shar. This is Lexi, and we're going to be here for a little while anyway. We'll see how long she can tolerate being co host um, for today's episode, all about an art check in and kind of like mental health, which this little one helps and detracts from with the biting. Oh, you got me. Um, but yeah, so we'll see how long she likes to be a little puppy co-host. You like being on the internet? You like being internet famous? Are you like being internet famous? Okay. Okay, now you're being sweet. Okay. But yeah, so I figured I am at my family's house, and we could do like a little episode with little 12-week-old little Lexi here, and see how that goes. I am not going to be doing a draw with me only because I didn't have the setup for it. I kind of forgot to bring some of the supplies from my place in order to show that. So we're kind of playing by ear here and just seeing how it goes. So maybe the puppy will be enough to help with that. But yeah, so yeah, today's episode is kind of based off of how last week went for me and probably how this past year has gone for a lot of people. You want to say hi, Lexi? Someone's here. Someone's here to see you. You want to say hi? You want to whine? Yeah. You want to be sad? Um, but yeah, this past year has been pretty difficult, and this year hasn't exactly been a bouquet of flowers either. So I figured we could do like a little check-in for everybody, art-wise, mental health-wise, puppy-wise, whatever. And yeah, we can figure out how to. Why are you so sad? How to get through all this together. So, oh my gosh, why are you so sad? Okay, you can get down. Um, but yeah, so we are going through a global pandemic still. That hasn't finished. Um, I don't want to say it's nearing an end because we're not going to be sure of that until probably a year or two after it's over. But um, for now, a lot of people are still in quarantine, still either kind of living by themselves or with their family. There's a lot of different challenges with all of those different scenarios. So it can be more difficult to do your work because if you're working from home, then you can have distractions, which you may or may not relate to at this very moment. And why are you so sad? Why are you so sad? Um, you could either be working from home or maybe nothing, almost nothing has changed. And you might have to go out here if you're going to be that sad. Or possibly nothing has changed and you may have to still go to work as normal, just plus a mask, and have to deal with the constant kind of like putting yourself in danger in whatever degree that consists of. Don't jump, please. You're high up. I'm gonna go down there. But yeah, so there is a lot of different challenges for a lot of different people, and doing your art can seem like the last thing you want to try to mess with or deal with or have any time for. And why are you so sad? You should even just hang out with me. Isn't that fun? Isn't that what you want? But yeah, so trying to do art during the pandemic can be very difficult, especially if you're not able to work on it full time, um, especially if it's still a struggle. All the things that you have been struggling with. Okay, she really wants to go. I will be right back. I'm on a bed right now, so I'm going to be right back and take her to be more happy because I don't want her sad. So, sorry if you missed Lexi. She was deciding that she was going to be a sad, sad puppy sack, so I decided to let her go be free and get her some food and drink or toys or whatever she wants to play with. So she may make another appearance on the show at a future date, maybe when she's less puppy and more relaxed, chill adult. So we'll see. But yeah, like as I was saying, it's very difficult to create under these circumstances and conditions. And honestly, I think we put too much pressure on ourselves to have to do that. And because of that, there's a lot of different mental health things coming from that in the sense of like, do you feel like you're doing enough? You have all this time, but you don't feel like creating. Um, there's so many different things that can contribute to all these different kinds of feelings. And addressing that head on is one of those things that can at least bring it to a forefront enough for you to hopefully help you deal with it in whatever way you can. Basically every kind of scenario is hard. It's hard to be completely alone in all of this. It's hard to constantly be surrounded by people without a break. It's difficult to not be able to see your family or friends or do your hobbies that you normally like to do that involve other people. It's hard to not have like downtime and chill time and socialization. We're a social species. It's just in our genetic makeup. Some people are more social than others, but at the end of the day, it's very hard unless you're true and complete and utter hermit, which doesn't happen all that often. Um, it's more likely than not that you're going to want to have some interaction with other people, even if it's under your own choice. Like, I only want to interact with my friends. Well, that's possible, but going to the grocery store and everything else is still interaction to whatever extent that is. But yeah, so all this contributes to having various. At the beginning of this whole pandemic, I used to joke with everybody with how long between your mental health breakdowns, before you just couldn't stand it anymore. And I think I got to like 4 weeks, about every between 2 to 4 weeks is for me the point where I start to crack. So without being able to have any kind of meaningful conversations or have time with family or just being alone and maybe having like 15 minutes of conversation in a week of like anything maybe at all, and definitely within 15 minutes. I'm somebody who can talk to somebody to people for like easily 4 to 8 hours at a time. Like it's a good, fun, long conversation where you get to feel like you have really talked to someone and shared your interests and been able to say what you want to say. I don't leave a conversation after that amount of time going, man, I wish I said that too often. So um, that's the kind of level that makes me happy, but obviously that is not the level that you can be able to achieve during a pandemic for the most part. Um, so all this runs back into your art of not only potentially not having the time, energy, or kind of being in the mood to create, but also still struggling with the same things that you may have been struggling for a long time now. For myself, it's just the constant struggle to get seen, to be able to have enough people know about the things I'm creating to be able to support a career. There's a threshold, I feel like you have to have a certain number of fans and people who are truly and genuinely interested in what you want to do um, to support churn, to be able to support the fact that some people are going to not be supportive every second of every day. It's just normal and natural. But if you have enough new people coming in, then it makes up for people who may not either want to stick around or just haven't. You know, social media is weird. There's people I like a lot, and I don't see their stuff for like weeks at a time, and that's just because I follow 2, 3, 400, 500 people, and it's hard to keep track of every single one. Um, and because most of the different algorithm sites don't allow you to just watch things in chronological order, um, you are constantly exposed to what it thinks you want to see. Um, and that works for everyone else. Something that's been helping me in this pandemic is to kind of think about the fact that how do I behave, and keeping in mind rather, that everything I think about and I do and I interact with and the way I interact with things is probably actually very similar to the way other people interact and have relationships with things online. And oh, I guess I could turn it on. I forgot about that. No, it doesn't make too much of a difference. Lighting in here is a little bit of visual, but so I tend to forget. I want the enough attention. I don't like too much attention, but I want enough attention um, in a way that would allow me to have the career that I want. Uh, and that same thought, I'm still like super picky about who I follow and how often I check social media and all different kinds of things, all different things that everybody is doing every day, having a life, not having a life, whatever, dealing with all sorts of different kinds of things, mental health issues, regular issues, other people's mental health issues, dealing with their pets, children, plants, whatever it is the thing that you have to deal with in your life, your job, whatever. Um, all of that takes a toll, right? So all that contributes to how much you interact online, how much you interact with other people. And when I'm home by myself, I'm very super snappy at responding. And, usually a minute or two goes by before I notice. Sometimes I feel like that's too soon to respond. Like, I feel like when I'm on Instagram and somebody like comments and then like it still says like 15 seconds, and I feel like that's too soon to immediately. It feels like I'm like on there nonstop, which sometimes I just have a really good spidey sense as to when to check it, and it just so happens that almost every time I get a new comment, it's like pretty fresh. It's one or the other. It's either 7 hours old or like 15 seconds old. Um, but either way, when I'm by myself, I tend to notice that very easily. But when I'm hanging out with my family, or when I'm hanging out with my family, because we're both in quarantine, so it's the only other source of human interaction I have. Um, then I go hours without checking my phone. In fact, when I look at I have that daily monitor of how many hours you're on your phone, and it's pretty high. It's about literally half the day, if not more, when I'm by myself. But that is the only form of human interaction I have, is through my phone. So I personally don't really feel bad about that. I guess there's people that will try to make you feel bad for seeking out human connections in the way you can, and I'm not going to be one of those people. But when I am around people, I tend to check my phone maybe a few times a day. In fact, I seek out some time at the end of the night to just be on my phone to have different interaction. And I'm still seeking out human interaction. It's just more, focused on the areas that I do hang out with online. Sometimes it's just mindless scrolling, but typically, when I'm in the mode to like chat and be chatty and have the ability to with people, um, then I definitely will do that more so online, as opposed to, I feel like I do a lot more like the mindless scroll when I'm by myself. It's kind of weird. I want to chat more with people, but I feel less like, I guess, acclimated to it or whatever. So um, yeah, it's always a struggle. Feel free to let me know in the chat how you've been struggling over this, whole quarantine, and um, how you feel in this immediate future of potentially being able to get through it through like more people getting vaccinated, and hopefully just this thing getting tamped down to the point where it's not the global pandemic that it is currently. Um, and just share your thoughts. How is it affecting you, your art? Some people and some companies and stuff have grown throughout. Basically, they've just taken advantage of the fact that like there's a lot more attention online, So because of that, if you can capture that attention, which I am notoriously bad at, but if you can capture that attention and focus it on you and your stuff, then that can really help you and helping the whole thing, helping the whole entire just everything with your company, helping it grow and helping you catch the right viral video on TikTok and a million people suddenly know your name and you have like 5,000 orders. I just saw a TikTok the other day that where that happened to an artist, and I thought that was really great. And it's not the first one I've seen like it, so it's definitely possible. It still feels like lotto or jackpot, where um, it's not going to happen to every single person, but when it does hit just right, then it can be very helpful. But also, if that doesn't happen to you and it's still, now marking 1 year into the pandemic, you can feel like super frustrated and really challenged. And I'm not speaking from personal experience or anything, but it just kind of brings like all these other feelings, like everything on top of everything with this whole pandemic and how this whole past year has gone and all this everything. Um, and then on top of it all, you're still in the same spot you were a year ago before the pandemic. Like before all this, you're still struggling in the same exact ways. And maybe you've tried a bunch of different things. Maybe you've just been too tired. Maybe, um, any number of things could have happened throughout all this past year. And more than likely, you've gotten distracted through real life issues and real life things going on. And with that, you know, some things have to take a back seat, and some of those things are potentially like your whole entire art career. And that's super frustrating, but at the same time, it's reality, and dealing with reality head on is about the best way you can do it. So, that said, how do you combat that, right? Like, okay, so you're either doing pretty good because the pandemic worked out for you in whatever way it could, or you're still stuck in the same rut, or just feeling like you're going through the motions. Just whatever kind of way you're feeling, how do you move forward? Well, if you're moving well, if like you're adapting well and everything, then I'm going to say the challenges are quite a bit different than uh, otherwise, but you might be feeling super overwhelmed. You might have a level of um, just attention that you're not used to, and with that comes all the different things that um, are unfortunate with our, not just, I mean, it's happened forever, but you're very aware now that people don't like you. Whereas before, being unknown, getting no attention is its own kind of frustration, but at least it wasn't negative attention generally. Um, or if someone did like it, then they would let you know that they definitely liked it. But if anyone didn't, then they would just scroll past, right? So that can be frustrating. But to get big enough that people who don't like it feel perhaps entitled to let you know such a thing, um, and you're suddenly getting inundated with a lot of that, that could be super overwhelming. You have so many orders to deal with, like the person who suddenly had 5,000 orders, and they're just, a mom and pop shop, they're just two people. Um, that's a lot to deal with, going from maybe one or two orders a week, potentially, whatever it was prior, to now having suddenly thousands of orders to be able to ship out. That's a whole operation that can involve a ton of, I mean, you could hire a whole crew to deal with that. Um, I know in my part-time job, we deal with things in the magnitude of thousands or tens of thousands of orders. So it definitely, dealing with that with a company compared to just one person can feel super overwhelming. Um, and as well, with that comes a lot of work. Like you you're in it to work, right? Like you're in it to make a living, and that's what you expect to do. But it's different when you're only packaging an order or two a week compared to thousands over the course of a month. So that is all, putting extra stress on your mind and body, and your relationships and everything else. So uh, it's a good problem to have in the sense that there are definite benefits from it, but there are certainly challenges that shouldn't be ignored either. And it should be something that we all keep in mind for if and when that happens to us. So it's all well and good to be like, oh, good job, what a problem to have, dismissive of their success. But at the same time, it's just new, different problems. It's not suddenly easy street. It's suddenly, oh wow, this is a lot of work and a lot of attention and just a lot. So that is definitely one scenario in which we're having to change gears and get used to things and whatnot. If you are stuck in the same place that you were, like maybe pre-pandemic, pandemic in that panorama, um, then you can be dealing with excessive feelings of frustration and perhaps even jealousy of these people who you see who are succeeding and getting all these views and likes and obviously orders or whatnot. And that's not super fun to deal with because it's not super productive. It doesn't make you feel particularly good. It just is. It's a feeling. As I've said before on the show, feel your feels. Like, don't pretend that you're not, feeling these things. Just acknowledge it and try to move past it as soon as you can. If it makes you so upset you want to like scream or cry or whatever, go in your car, take a drive somewhere, or just if you already are somewhere where you can just, let those feelings out, then do it. Like don't bottle all that up for a year and then be surprised when you're, having breakdown after breakdown because of all these pent up emotions. Like it's better to just kind of get them out and feel how you're feeling. Um, in kind of a gallow humorous way. You have time to feel this, right? Because you're not getting inundated with orders or whatever. So um, you might as well deal with all these emotional things when you have the time and the mental energy. Whether that is, for me, I have to deal with it myself. I don't have a lot of resources in the way of like when I'm really, really feeling distraught. So I have a lot of self coping and techniques with that. And that's something I've developed even before the pandemic, but it's been super heightened throughout this past year. But if you do have the resources to be able to go to a therapist, to talk to a good friend, to be able to have somebody to bounce these feelings off of judgment free, take those opportunities. Not everybody has them. And that is one area where I will say anything you can do to benefit yourself, try to do it. Um, like I said, all of this is in preparation for if and when it does happen to you. So the better you are able to handle this frustration when nothing's happening is probably going to prepare you for being able to better handle it when you are dealing with a whole lot. When it does move from frustration to overwhelm, um, then you can absolutely um, go ahead and actually jump into a new, different phase of your business and your life um, in a way that is going to be more advantageous for you than if you are totally unprepared and it just suddenly happens to you. That's a whole different ballgame. I'm about 20 some minutes in this, and I'm hoping you guys can hear me because that's going to be really terrible if I've been blabbling for all this time and all you can see is just my mouth moving. Um, I don't have a headset again today because I just was not super prepared. I'm a little out of sorts because I had a bunch of things had to shift around. Um, Kind of in the topic of this in the sense of mental health and overwhelm as far as um, what I've dealt with recently. Last week I had a bunch of issues going on with my RV. Um, I don't. I was really hesitant to try to call in professionals because of COVID, because of just the fact of what the issues were, just because having to spend money on professionals just, was just another sense of overwhelm and frustration for me. So I did end up being able to solve the problem by myself, which was really good. Oh, no worries, Christy. Thanks for letting me know you can hear me. But yeah, so I had a bunch of issues dealing with that. I had a super overwhelming period of just super frustration from everything that's been going on and it not like happening fast enough for me. Trying to find the middle ground between understanding that I've only been doing the thing I've been currently focused on for a couple of years, but not allowing it to like conflate with the amount of time I've been trying to do it in general. So I have had this project called The Golden Truth, and I've been working on it since 2017 and developing it since then and doing comic very consistently, well, very consistently for me anyway, pretty consistently since 2018. And then on top of it, I've also been trying to make a career in art in general since 2003. So it's very hard for me to focus on one without getting frustrated by the other thing. So it kind of came to a head for me last week, which is why I was like, you know, I'm not in the proper mind space to be able to do a show, so I feel like it would be better served to just like take care of myself in my situation, and I did it. It's fine now, but like I said, feel your feels. You got to be able to do it. You got to let yourself, you know, reprioritize at the drop of a hat when needed. Um, and when you do that, you're able to better handle the next situation that comes along. I've also been reaching out more. I've been reaching out to old mentors. I've been reaching out to just kind of the nebulous void, and people who say they want to help me. I listen. Like if you take the time to want to help me, I'm going to take the time to listen. It's the least I can do. I may not be able to take every thing that you advise. Um, Largely what happens is that people want to help. They're not experts in the things I need help with, like say like online art marketing. Um, and they have suggestions, but they're the suggestions. I've been at this for a while, you know, so I've done all of the articles you may be able to Google saying like how to help with art. I've done that too, and I've been doing that before blogs, before there was MySpace, before DeviantArt. I was on here trying to make an art career. So I've been at this a very, very long time, and I'm one of those people who keep trying to keep up with the Joneses in the sense of like all the new techniques and um, are we doing 30 hashtags on Instagram now, or are we only doing the select few? Like, you know, all those type of different hacks and algorithm changes and everything. I'm trying to keep up with all of it. So understand that it is frustrating for them to offer help, and I'm just like, yep, tried that, didn't work. I know that's frustrating to hear as someone trying to help someone else, but if you do want to help people in your friends and your artist friends in this situation, I highly suggest rather than just throwing suggestions on them and at them willy nilly without any kind of prior conversation, have the conversation. You need to have a conversation first before you start offering advice. And the first thing about the conversation needs to be asking questions. What have you tried? What haven't you tried? What do you want to try, but maybe you're intimidated by? Do you feel like you need help? And if you're in a position, now only offer this if you actually are willing to follow through. But if you are in a position to help them in the way they need help, and you want to, and you have the time and resources and energy for it, again, very, very important. Do not offer help in the way that that someone needs help and then not follow through. That is like the worst thing you could possibly do. I'd rather people just pat me on the head and said, good luck, and walk away than to tell me and promise me that they're going to help and then not follow through. Um, it As somebody who's been struggling with this for a really long time, I will tell you that is the worst thing you can do. So be aware of what you are able to do and what you are able to help. Sometimes people just want to hear, you know, have an ear to listen out for, um, and say, well, I can't do marketing and I can't, you know, I don't have a lot of experience with helping with art. or offering tips on that, but I can listen. If that helps, I'm willing to do that. So don't undersell your hopefulness. Just be aware of what it is that you actually can do and are willing to do, and stick to that. Don't try to overpromise and underdeliver when it comes to friendships or offering for help, because that is a recipe for disappointment. And in this era and the way things are right now, people can't take any more disappointment on top of what they already are experiencing. So it's definitely very important when you are helping with your friends and you're chatting and you're reaching out after they've maybe put a generic post out there and you want to help. Like, definitely take the time, if you can, to reach out if you have the energy for it. Even as little of a gesture as it seems, liking your post, letting them know. If you're barking, that is Lexi being extra right now. Um, but if you are, great, Lexi, maybe lose my thought. But yeah, so if you are offering help and whatnot, then I really did lose it. um, yeah, I don't know what I was trying to say, but anyway, yeah, offer help in the way that you are able to contribute, and I would not over offer help in that way. Moving on from that, it is also important to know where you are as far as, are you in the overwhelm stage? And you can also be overwhelmed by nothing happening. It can be a very overwhelming feeling when the frustration and all the different feelings related to that have bubbled up to the surface to the point where now you're feeling all of them at the same time. Maybe you've been trying to tamp them down and not worry or think about it, and now all of a sudden it's an issue, and you're having to worry and think about it right now, and that can feel very overwhelming. So just kind of like know where you are emotionally, if you can, like check in with yourself in that way, and you can refer to the steps that I've already kind of chatted about. I did talk about, like, if things are going super great, that's a problem. If things aren't going super great, that's also a problem. So at any point in time, you can't be doing too much or too little to feel bad about it. Like, everything kind of sucks right now. So don't feel like you aren't valid for feeling the way you feel, because you absolutely are. Um, if you're not growing fast enough, if you feel like you're doing all the techniques that you can, and you're not growing as fast as you want, that's frustrating. If you are growing too fast, that can be overwhelming and frustrating, in totally different ways. So everything is valid right now and forever. It's not just through this pandemic. I'm gonna probably do more of these check-in episodes throughout the pandemic, but a thing with this whole entire channel is always going to be focusing a little less on the techniques, the very specific, this is how you draw a horse, and you draw a circle, and then you draw another circle, and then you connect the lines. And going to be always a little bit more, how do you feel during this journey? One of the things that helped me to feel better last week, to kind of realize, is to take stock of the fact that it would be easier. I'm not saying this is easier to say than do, for sure, but it would be easier for me if I enjoyed this part of the journey. If I enjoyed right here, right now more. If I are supporting me more. If I acknowledged the people who are, and really got a better connection with the people who are supporting me, if I did that more. If I did all of, instead of thinking about what I don't have, which, it's like the cliche advice of, like, appreciate what you got, whatever. But it really does make you, when you're in the mood, when you're not completely livid and super, feeling annoyed by every single thing that exists, when you're in a different mode of being, and you're able and potentially ready to think about this kind of stuff, um, to be able to acknowledge the things you do have in the way you have them, despite them not being perfect, which they probably never will be. Um, but just acknowledging that what you do have is something, it's not nothing. It's definitely probably not exactly what you want yet. You always tend to be striving towards something. It's just kind of how living creatures work. Bees are always working on the next hive or the next phase in their life. So they're not, um, well, bees are a whole other thing. My brain went into bee mode. It's like, oh, I could go off about bees. It's not about bees. Point being, as living creatures, we are always trying to strive to the next thing that we're wanting to do, wanting to achieve, wanting to accomplish. And in doing that, you can either be so forward focused that you have blinders on to what everything is going on around you, or you can kind of to use another lame quote, stop and smell the roses and just kind of like look at everything happening and um, be grateful with what you have. And one of the ways I feel like it's kind of easy for me to feel grateful is to be a little bit sarcastic about it, which might sound counterintuitive, but acknowledging the things I have and then immediately saying, look, that's all I got, okay? Like, yeah, I have a caring and parents who love and support me in what I do, but that's all I got. It's like, is it a little biting? Is it a little whatever? Sure, but it also like brings me to a point of gratitude that just sitting there and writing in my journal and feeling so sad about everything. I don't do that very well. I'm not one of those people who can just be so appreciative and grateful. If it's not a little cutting with a little bit of like sardonic sarcasm, then it's not for me. Like I gotta just be like, look, that's all I got. I got a good driving record. All right, I'm really good at driving. Okay, that's it. That's all I got. You know what? It still puts you in a better mind space than when you're sitting there and you're like, but I don't, but like my car's broken and now this is happening and that is happening. I just have to spend a bunch of money on brand new tires when I didn't expect it. And when you start going through that downward spiral of like, I don't have, as opposed to at least begrudgingly accept what you do, um, I'm all about begrudging acceptance. Like that is my love language. So um, it really helps me to be grateful when I'm not super feeling like being grateful. That's the other thing. It kind of cuts me out of because I can't just go from I'm not airy fairy like let's be grateful for everything all the time in the silly way I was doing the voice earlier, but and not people who are like that. It's just not me. Um, I can't be that way. I don't have a problem with other people who are, but that said, know yourself, know the type of personality and humor potentially that you have, so you can kind of deal with these things. Um, yeah. So Christy says that something that has been really hard to deal with is realizing social media following doesn't always translate into income. And that is so incredibly true. And it's something I've seen and acknowledged in others in this journey of mine and being very observant about how well it's working for other people because I'm very invested in seeing other people's journeys and seeing how I could potentially translate that to my own. And I've seen people with millions of followers, and then when I check their Patreon, only thousands are backing it. And that's still like, oh, only thousands? Right. But like, when you have a million followers and only 10,000 people are backing you, that is such an infinitesimal, like, percentage wise, right? Like, that's so small of a percentage of the people that are liking what you do who then take that extra mile to then support what you do. Um, and I'm sure that that percentage scales. So I think it's pretty accurate. I have probably, and this is over the course of what, how long has Instagram been a thing? 10 years now, whatever. Going on 10 years, 8 years, something, I don't know. Um, I have like 1,000 followers on there, which is like 100 followers a year, which isn't how that worked, but that's how it's kind of played out. And which is like 100, I don't know, I can't do math. But anyway, um, point being, I have like 20 patrons right now, 1,000 followers, 20 patrons. So yeah, I'd say I'm not, again, not good at math, but I feel like that is a similar kind of percentage to having 1 million followers and only 10,000 backers, right? So um, I'm sure you can do a little algebra equation to get it exact, but I think it's in the general ballpark. It's a small percentage. It's like the single digits, I think. Um, Feel free to correct me on that if you're good at math, but point being, I see that all the time. Everyone who you check their social media following, and then there's the other things that happen where they have a huge social media following, hundreds of thousands of followers, and then you check their Patreon and they have like 3 backers, and you're like, what? How is this even possible? Um, so it definitely does not translate to income, and that's just the metrics I can snoop around and see online. That doesn't count for their shops or perhaps if they have a day job or a spouse or whoever um, might be helping support them. Which I am also finding out in the course of doing the show is a huge thing that should not be ignored. That if you have financial support, um, then that's awesome. Like, don't feel bad about that. That's great. That is a huge advantage that you have. That is one less worry that you don't have to mess with. And that's one of those things that even if you have to be sarcastically grateful for it, do it. Just be like, well, at least I have this. It's like I don't have all the other stuff I want, but I got this. Take it. Take that win. Um, so just to tie that up, there's a lot of people that don't talk about that aspect of being an artist, that they are married or with or roommates or whatever in a situation where they don't have to be the sole everything for their whole entire, like their art doesn't have to do all of the work for them and they can still like survive. So if you are feeling like, oh, I'm so frustrated, it's so hard for me. I have to work this part-time job or this full-time job, and I'm still not making my artwork. Well, the people you're looking up to, are they in that same exact position? And that's another thing that helped me feel better last week is I was looking up to a lot of people who have the kind of help that I don't have, and I'm not going to be able to easily get. Um, and that's not a really fair comparison. That's being very unfair to myself to see people who have an advantage that I don't, and then downing on myself for not then being further along. And sometimes just taking stock of your situation and really realizing like the unfair things that are happening to you, um, and how negatively that impacts your life. Freaking take stock of that. Don't I'm not saying be grateful for it, but like understand that is hard. That is hard to deal with, and it's something that you can't ignore or pretend that doesn't exist or isn't a problem because it absolutely is. And for you to try to ignore it is only putting pressure on yourself in ways that are not helpful and aren't fair. It's honestly just not fair. It doesn't feel fair. It's because it's not. Um, yeah, yeah, and that's true too from what Christy is saying. I was saying I check out accounts that are, I see what I feel like is successful or the type of success I would like to achieve. And I assume that they're probably not only if I can, stock up on their Patreon and see what they're making, um, I do that aspirationally. I'm like, oh wow, that person's making $7,000 a month. That's amazing. Like that's what I would like. If they did it, maybe I can do it too. That's how I tend to see that. It keeps me sane, thinking about it that way. But as well, you can look at an account and even your same size, and automatically, for whatever reason, um, maybe you think that they're making way more than you just because of, who knows, like actual credible, information you can verify, or maybe not. Um, and sometimes it just feels like everyone else is doing better than you may be doing yourself, and it can just be so frustrating. Um, so yeah, it absolutely is hard to know what to expect. Um, yeah, exactly, and acknowledging if you do have help in the ways that you can have help is absolutely, if that helps you to have gratitude, even begrudgingly so, um, then that's a definitely good thing to take stock of and to acknowledge, and I would say not feel bad about. Like the fact I don't want to say too much because I feel like I'm going to jinx myself, but the fact I'm a good driver helps me in a lot of ways that if you were constantly getting into accidents and constantly having to deal with repair bills and insurance and blah, 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 that would be an extra thing in my life that I would have to deal with if I wasn't as cautious, and the way I drive wasn't such a way that prevented me from having to deal with those issues. Um, then yeah, it just be grateful for the fact that maybe your life isn't just a little bit harder for no reason, right? Like, um, there's nothing wrong with taking stock of what you have, and then feeling okay about it. Like, um, uh, yeah, I just then thought of like 7 different ways where maybe that could be bad, but um, it's also for you, right? Like this is also not something you need to share on social media. I don't sit around and try to brag about like things that are going right in my life. I don't think a lot of people do. I think it's good to take stock in it. I think it's good to acknowledge it to yourself and maybe a few close friends. But and I'm only pointing out the examples that I am because it's relevant to the conversation, not really any other reason. But um, and again, I'm doing it also begrudgingly. It's all I got, okay? I have supportive parents, so sue me, you know? Um, it's the only way I could do it, right? Like I can't just sit there and just like gloat. I, anything I feel positive toward, I don't feel like is gloat worthy. It's like almost an accident. The driving thing I have a little bit more control over, but only just a little bit. I can't control everything. I mean, I've had rocks come and ding my windshield and screwed that up, and I had to get a new windshield. Like, things happen, and it's totally out of your control. But acknowledging when things are slightly in your control and working to your favor. Again, that doesn't have to be a super thing that gets broadcasted, but it can help alleviate any kind of feelings of guilt or potentially imposter syndrome or things like that. So if you want to try to feel better about different things by acknowledging the good in your life, do that, right? Like anything you can do that doesn't hurt others in this global pandemic to help make yourself feel a little bit better. The other thing I have, I guess, as far as like a little bit of advice on this like kind of topic is I probably have undiagnosed ADHD and I cannot do schedules. I don't like schedules. I've never been good at schedules. And I can only do schedules if it's an external motivation. Um, like on the Colorism Discord, when people say like, "Hey, I can be in the Discord and chat from this time to this time." That's an external thing coming on to me, and then I can do that. I can be there. I can fit that schedule and make it fit in my life. But if it's like I have free reign of my whole entire week and I can do whatever I want, and I'm actually noticing more and more that the days that I do have all that time, am I making absolutely great time with my day? No. But what I also do, and what I've been trying to do more, is I'm again not good at schedules. So what I am good at is eating, drinking, and sleeping every day. Like, I eat food, I drink water, and I go to sleep at least at some point every day. And instead of placing those on artificial times or whatever throughout the day, um, I just base the things I want to do on those things. So before I want to go to bed, about an hour or two, whatever, before I'm starting to feel sleepy, I will make myself a cup of tea. And then I'll have one or two things of tea before bed. And I'm not basing it because it's like, oh, it's 10 o'clock, time for tea. It's, I'm getting a little sleepy. Yeah, I'll have a couple of things of tea. So basing things on biological rhythms, like once I get up and get out of bed, I'm hungry. That's surprising. And I do the same kind of breakfast routine every single day. And in those kind of ways, I'm very consistent, and I actually do have a rhythm and a schedule in that way. It just doesn't look like a normal schedule, and I wouldn't call it a schedule because it's only a schedule to me, and no one else could follow it. So I don't recommend calling like I wouldn't call it a schedule for other people, other than just to say base it on if you're like me and you're bad at scheduling. If you're good at scheduling, I don't know. Awesome. Put that in those categories of things you don't have to worry about that other people do. But if you're like me and you're very bad about managing your own time when you have your own time to manage and it's not dictated by external influences, and you want to try to make the most of your time, um, definitely try to tie it in with some kind of biological function, which sounds weird, but it's super helpful because once I eat, then I typically on one day of the week after I eat, it's time to go get groceries. So then I get ready and then I go do that. And then when I'm done with the groceries, I come home and I typically try to start working on something. Eventually, I want to get to the point where I'm doing the same kind of things because I do want to fit more in my day because I feel like if I was doing more, maybe I'll accomplish more. Maybe that's a fallacy way of thinking, but um, eventually I do want to get to the point where I'm like, okay, on this day I come home from the grocery store and I work on this type of thing, maybe a Patreon reward, and then on this other day, like after I'm done filming this show, for instance, then I work on the sketch for the comic for the next week, um, whatever, for example. And whatever ways that help you as well. Sometimes not telling anyone what you plan can be motivating because you're like, well, I'm not beholden to anyone. No one knows this plan but me. So then I don't feel any external pressure to get it done, and that helps me get it done. If that works for you, then do that. Otherwise, like me, I need that external pressure. If I had someone that acted like my boss, um, who was like telling me like, hey, on this day do this and on that day do that. That would actually probably be super helpful for me, but I have to do that for myself. But in the ways you can do that for yourself with a little external pressure is to kind of like tell people that's what you want to do. You can have a certain like accountability person that you have like a bond with, and that you can have these like conversations in a mutual kind of accountability with, or you could just like tweet about it or post about it online and kind of tell people like, hey, this is the thing I want to start doing, and if you think about it and you see that I'm not doing it, feel free to call me out. Like, please call me out on it. If that helps you, then that's some other things you can do. Um, so it's all this time alone. Uh, for me, it's been alone. If if you've been through this past year, more than likely you are a slightly different person than you were a year ago. Kind of hopefully for the better. Um, and in part, in doing that, hopefully you also know yourself a little bit better. If nothing else, if it's totally not externally, anything to do with outside of yourself, hopefully you at least just know yourself better. And a lot of these tips on a lot of these shows that I say revolve around knowing yourself very, very well. I know myself down to the point where if I get annoyed 3 times at the same thing, I will get mad on the 4th time. And I'm not like planning it, I'm not like counting it out every time. I just notice every single time after the 3rd time I've been trying to click the same button on the same program and it fails. On the 4th time, I get annoyed by it. I'm cool, I'm cool, I'm cool, I'm not cool. And just knowing yourself down to that level is so helpful. It allows you to get so much, not, I don't want to say done or productivity, because it's not really about, what society deems your worthiness is, but it allows you to be able to operate on your highest self, operate being your highest self at all times. And sometimes that doesn't mean, again, this isn't tied to productivity. This is tied to like how you feel and how you're feeling, and being very open and honest with that, and understanding that not all the time you feel good. And sometimes you're a ball of tears and crying all day, and that is your highest self in that moment. That you can't be any other way, and just accepting that. And I think that's really what it boils down to, is that the more you know about yourself, the more you can accept about yourself. And once you accept yourself, then you can actually then change yourself. I feel like change without acceptance is very fleeting. An example I use a lot to myself, and I'm going to start trying to share with others if it's helpful, is say the stereotypical thing of like you want to lose weight, right? A lot of people withhold self-acceptance and withhold self-love from themselves until they lose the weight. The thing is, even if you're successful, even if you're 100% successful and you get down to the exact weight and that exact tone and the exact fitness level that you want, if you wait to love yourself until you hit that point, and then you hit that point and you're like, all right, here I am, I'm here, where's the love, where is it? Okay, guys, yeah, I know you're hiding it, and you're talking to yourself, but you're like, all right, I know we're hiding it from myself, but this is silly now. Okay, just bring it out. Guess what? It won't be there. That is a thing that you have to do day in, day out, and accept yourself exactly the way you are right now, and your exact situation the way it is right now. And accepting doesn't mean not wanting to improve or not acknowledging that it's hard or not. Acceptance is exactly, it is what it is. Like, right? Like, it's not putting judgment on it. It's not putting negative feelings on it. It's not even putting blissfully positive feelings on it. It's just acknowledging what it is. And if you can do that for yourself throughout every step of this journey, then again, you can put that in a column of the pros of like, hey, that's one thing that I can do for myself that unfortunately not everybody can do, and it makes my life that much easier. And with that, like, different things will be able to get resolved in much easier ways than maybe they have in the past. You'll have the emotional energy and expenditure to be able to help others. You will be feeling more in a state of acceptance for not only yourself but others. And in that, you want to have a better life in the world for them. So, yeah, I just stated how world peace happens, and it comes from loving yourself within. There you go, world peace. That's all we have to do. Simple as that. But yeah, all that said, I appreciate you coming to check out this episode of Colorisma. I know it's not as like draw with me today as it was, but at least I had the puppy at the beginning, so that was fun. But yeah, I appreciate you being here, watching this with us, we, me, whatever. And yeah, I do have a guest later on in the month, so that'll be fun to get back to the interviews. I'm going to be sending out more invitations and wanting to talk with more people. Again, if you want to be on the show, just say the word, just make it happen, put it into existence. And we can have a conversation about, whatever stage you're in, because I think every stage of this journey is valid, and you're valid, and we need you here. So, um, you know, we'll make it together. We will get through this pandemic together. So I appreciate you being here. If you want to join us on Colorisma on all the social medias, it's Colorisma pretty much everywhere. And as well, if you really, really want to support the show and help maybe get better lighting situations in all the different ways I do this show, then you can join us over on Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/colorisma, and for $2 a month, you can help support this Artcast and get more people, some chipper chats and get some helpful good vibes hopefully. So I appreciate y'all being here and have a good one. Take care. Bye.